You've surely seen at least one video like this. Starting from scratch in a wasteland and quickly earning millions. But what if I told you that 90% of these videos are scams? To start from scratch, you need three things. Obviously, some starting land, basic tools like a scythe and a pitchfork, and a sell point so you don't have to run across the entire map to sell grass. And here's the catch. In front of you are three sell points that look very similar, but one of them is often used to, frankly, deceive viewers. So let's take a closer look at them one by one. Number one is a sell point for selling straw, hay, grass, and silage, and it comes with the No Man's Land map. Number two is a sell point from ModHub where you can sell everything. Number three is a sell point where you can sell almost anything, called the gold market. And now, a little show. I'll sell the exact same silage bale at each sell point one by one. Number one, with a result of 406. Number two, just 3 points higher. And the cherry on top, the gold market, over 50% more than the previous ones. To find out how much such a sell point impacts the game when starting from scratch, I conducted an experiment where one save had a regular sell point and the other had gold market. At the start of the game on both farms there wasn't much difference. I grabbed a scythe and began my adventure. With the gold market I earned my first 100 pretty quickly. So quickly in fact that before I knew it I already had 500, which allowed me to rent a tractor and mower. You can find both the tractor and the mower on ModHub. The tractor was released by the game's developers, so its price should be relatively realistic. With the regular grass sell point I had to mow much more, and to make the experiment as reliable as possible I decided to use the same machines and tractors, all of which come from ModHub, so the prices would be reasonable. The modifications that most often appear in such videos are follow me, and most importantly, cosplay. Of course I use them too. On the boosted farm, earning money went very fast, so I quickly bought another set, a tractor with a mower. I should also note that I played on the farm with the gold market first, and that's where I established my plan and choice of machines. That's why on the regular farm I very quickly rented a forage wagon instead of constantly running around with a pitchfork to sell grass. Additionally, I quickly bought an axe to clear the trees and avoid creating small fields. On the contrary, I had already created a custom field across almost the entire area. Since this data doesn't save in the save game but in courseplay files, it should be much easier for me in this save. Despite the lower machine and sell point prices. Even with these lower prices, I quickly rented another tractor, or even 2 more tractors with mowers. As they say, go big or go home. Otherwise, I would have spent a week mowing that huge meadow with just one set. On the boosted farm, before renting the forage wagon, I rented a windrower and still gathered the grass with a pitchfork. You have to admit, it's quite interesting knowing what I do with more experience. Eventually, I rented a forage wagon, but I only collected a little grass with it, not even filling it completely. Then I rented a third tractor. Unfortunately, I didn't quickly think of clearing the trees, so I made small fields to avoid them. I also rented a round baler and a wrapper. We'll be making silage because, well, what else can you do in Farming Simulator 22 to develop your farm quickly? Speaking of the baler, something funny happened. I was short a few horsepower, but luckily I had downloaded another, also very cheap machine. I'm telling you this as an interesting tidbit. Another fun fact is that thanks to the cosplay mod, workers aren't afraid of tasks like baling or wrapping bales. I took advantage of this, which gave me time to clear the trees. It took me a while before I came up with this brilliant idea. On the regular farm, I mowed quite a large part of the meadow, then windrowed it, and I had to sell much more grass to afford a baler and wrapper. Here's an interesting point. Playing on this save, I was less lazy, and instead of setting a course for each tractor in courseplay, I used follow me and sat at the wheel of the windrower myself. However, I must admit that I didn't windrow the entire field by hand. On the boosted farm, I didn't stress too much about cutting every blade of grass precisely. Once it was roughly mowed and wrapped in foil, I returned the machines and slept until December, since the charts indicated that silage would fetch the best price then. Of course, I wasn't gonna collect the bales by hand. I did it in true start from zero style, using a trailer with auto load. As I mentioned earlier, it's also from ModHub. When all the bales disappeared from the meadow, my account had over 91,000. So it was time for phase 2. But before that, on the regular farm, I mowed almost all the grass that was in the field. Despite having 3 3 tractors, the entire operation, including baling and wrapping, took me over 3 hours. In the end, I sold a bit more grass to avoid going bankrupt and fast-forwarded time to January, as the chart suggested. The time difference was likely due to the boosted sell point. As you can see, I gathered many more bales here, almost 2 full trailers, whereas on the previous farm I gathered at most 1.5. Despite the lower prices, I earned 20,000 more, but it cost me much more time. When the grass grew back a little, I rented a self-propelled mower, because if you're going to do it right. I also rented a decent tractor and a modern baler with a built-in wrapper. For a while, I drove around the meadow, cutting grass, making bales, and wrapping them. But remember that one set is definitely not enough. That's why I rented another identical set, also with a baler. Thanks to the experience from the previous save, I knew that the self-propelled mower would easily handle 2 balers, so no one had to wait. Speaking of experience, on the boosted farm where the game was played first, I also rented a self-propelled mower and the same baler set. I mowed and baled for a while until a light bulb went off. I decided to take a look around the neighboring areas. After some thought, I rented another tractor and the autoload trailer you saw earlier, and I collected the bales lying around that could get in my way later. Then I came up with the idea of renting another self-propelled mower, even though it wasn't necessary. I could afford it, and I had a plan for it. Of course, I rented another baler as well and got to work. This time, I intended to mow every bit of grass so nothing would go to waste. Once the entire area was stripped of grass, I fast-forwarded time by 24 hours so the silage would be ready. Collecting what had been baled, nearly a full trailer, allowed me to buy another plot of land. While I was busy clearing trees, the tractors were baling, and the 2 mowers worth hundreds of thousands were a bit bored. Oh well. On the regular farm, I made very similar moves. Before the whole meadow was baled, I fast-forwarded time by 24 hours and sold a similar amount of silage, and a similar sum appeared in my account. However, remember that earlier I sold more, and here I only rented 1 mower, which was the most expensive part of it all. Before I could clear the entire area of trees, I quickly sent the mower there so it wouldn't sit idle, because every penny counts. I also sent a tractor with a baler, while another one was collecting silage bales to replenish the budget. On the newly purchased land, I gathered the remaining bales, so of course no one would be bothered, and hired another tractor with a baler. On the boosted farm, it wasn't so easy because I still had to create custom fields, which, as I mentioned, are saved, so it's easier on subsequent saves. To start, I hired 1 mower to calmly clear the land of trees, and once the area was fairly clean, the second mower arrived, followed immediately by a tractor with a baler. Even though there was still some grass lying on the first field, I didn't pay attention to it. Why worry about such small amounts? The meadow was mowed very quickly, which isn't surprising considering the most expensive cutting machines in the game were doing the work. As I mentioned earlier, 1 mower would have been enough because I even used one of them to collect bales. As they say, hindsight is 20/20. After selling the last bits of silage, I set off to find the next plot, so the mowers wouldn't get bored. On the regular farm, I didn't sit idle either. After baling a few bales and even filling an entire trailer, I fast-forwarded time by another 24 hours and sold the full trailer of ready silage, which replenished my account. This allowed me to buy another plot, because as we all know, 1 mower is more than enough when you have 2 balers. Once the mower finished, there was still plenty of grass to bale, which the workers took care of while I focused on clearing the newly purchased plot of land. After removing a few trees, I immediately put a worker on the mower, and soon after I brought in a tractor with a baler. Meanwhile, since there wasn't a significant backlog behind the mower yet, I used the second tractor to gather a few bales so they'd be ready for sale later. On the boosted farm, the third plot disappeared in the blink of an eye thanks to the 2 mowers, while the workers with balers were quite behind. Despite this, I decided to finish baling the entire area calmly before speeding up time to allow the grass to ferment. After fast-forwarding time, the grass on the first plot had fully regrown, so I sent the 2 mowers back there while I started collecting the bales. Quite a few had accumulated, allowing me to make nearly $500,000, exactly 470,000. On the regular farm, despite having only 1 mower, the third plot also disappeared fairly quickly. Then I fast-forwarded time to ferment the grass and got to selling the bales, which of course were quite numerous. After After selling them all, I had 260,000 in my account, but there was a small accident earlier. I sold a trailer of grass for 27,000 instead of silage, which was worth around 62,000 on average. If not for that mistake, I should have had around 295,000, which is about 175,000 less than I had by using gold market as the sell point. As for the mowed grass, the situation was very similar. I spent 1 hour less on the regular farm. As I mentioned, I played on the gold market farm first and made a lot of mistakes there, so I could have earned even more. You can leave a sub and a thumbs up because I spent an enormous amount of time making this video. See you soon!